Elizabeth Purvis. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be doing this with you.
I am so happy to be here too.
I just like for those listening, we were just on a retreat together and it was like, you are the queen of magic, and how have you not been on this podcast yet? So I'm really excited.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited too. It was so great to reconnect with you in Cartagena.
Mm, yes.
Yeah, we've
So
been on, we've been on
magic
this
of
path for a
retreat.
while.
Exactly. Yeah, y'all, I've known Elizabeth for a long time. She helps entrepreneurs to package and offer their magic in a way that actually has people know they want it without needing to get on a sales call. So that's kind of her thing, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
One of the things.
How do you avoid having to talk to people and still make money? Fair?
There is a way.
But
Definitely.
first, you are a magician extraordinaire.
Thank you.
You've studied divine guidance in many different modalities and approaches and backgrounds. Can you just talk a little bit about what drew you to the mystical world?
Oh my goodness. When has anyone asked me that question? Yeah, I've always been this way is the answer. Is how I approach it. And I'm in my 50s now and I grew up in the 80s in Maine and there was no magic in the 80s in Maine, but
Minnesota
I
either.
right. But I just knew it from a really young age the goddess was talking to me and intuition has always been a thing. I remember being a very small child and like, the stuff that happens, right? Knowing when the phone will ring, knowing who's on the other end of on the other side of a door, or knowing what's going to happen, or being able to see things play out. And I've always just really had strong guidance, and it comes auditorily, actually, to me in the form of a voice in my head. And I used to talk about the voice in my head until I realized that that was a bad idea, for a 6, 7, 8 year old to be doing in Maine in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm curious immediately, like, how did your family feel about that?
Well, I mean, I got really good at hiding things very quickly. So it was the kind of thing that I kind of let slip here and there and then just immediately didn't. So I have a feeling that they didn't really know all that was happening, and they definitely didn't know like the books that were hidden in my closet, and they didn't know kind of like what I was thinking about all the time. And I had, I had, a regular childhood too. And my thing was, I was a competitive figure skater. So my world was consumed by going to the rink and getting up in the morning and doing a lot of shows. I used to love to perform. And so they were very focused on that. And meanwhile, in the background, like I'm sitting here knowing all these things about the skaters and knowing like what was going to happen and having, again, the voice in my head. And I remember speaking about it a couple of times to skaters and having them go, kids my age, and they're like, you know. But that said, my family was also very traditional. They're very staunch conservatives. My dad is Catholic and my mom's Methodist. She likes to joke that she was born in holy roller country, and she's not. She like, she defected and was like, all right, I'm done with this. But yeah, I really spent a lot of time hiding it is the answer.
You know,
Isn't
it's so
great, but
common,
yeah,
right?
it's
Like
very
I
common.
that so much of the work I do with clients is around like, oh, I've been hiding my magic.
Yeah,
I'm protecting people from it. I'm afraid of it. Like they, so many people have had negative experiences around it.
yeah.
And yet that's like kind of a competitive advantage, I would think, in some way. What was that
It
like? Or
it
did you ever know
is.
things you didn't want to know?
I never got like the hits I didn't want to know. I never got like the stuff like that would make me scared for whatever reason. I mean, I suppose if I did start seeing like visions of really dramatic, horrible things, it would have been different. But to me, it was just normal. It was very much like, doesn't everyone have this going on? Isn't everyone this way? You know? And so it didn't like nothing really like freaked me out, but it was just it was just normal. It's kind of just how I
And
was.
you're thinking everybody's seeing it, but just no one's talking about it.
Right.
Like you're
Yeah.
just
And then
about.
but I also picked up because again, my parents were both from a religious background. Well, our house wasn't religious at all. Even my dad was very, he was, he kept the Catholicism to himself too, not in any kind of attempt to hide it or because it was wrong, but just, I think they didn't really decide kind of like which way what they exactly were going to do with their kids.
Mm,
So, so I knew that it wasn't welcome.
they
And
didn't really
especially the
decide.
witch stuff, right? Because I became a Wiccan in my early 20s, and that did cause like I was in the closet with that for ten years, and it was very, very, very challenging because I wanted to tell them and I wanted to share it with them, but I knew that it was going to be, yeah, like not it was not going to be a good scene if I did. I was going to
Yeah.
get a lot of pushback. And in fact, even little things like one time my dad was in my house or my apartment in New York City and was looking at all the magic books and going like, "Are you into this?" And it just like I just shut down, you know?
Mm.
So, but then there came a time where I was like, "We can't do
Yeah.
this anymore."
How
Like
is it now?
they don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. And I'm being
Nobody
really
talks
candid.
about it.
And I hope that this
But,
reaches someone who can really
mm.
relate, right? And so they're on my pages, they see my stuff, like they know the whole deal. The cat is out of the bag. My dad is liking all my magic posts, which is wonderful. And he's an amazing human. Like he's just,
But he's never asked you about it.
no, he's never asked me about it. And,
Mhm.
he's Catholic.
Yeah.
He's Catholic, and I respect that, I've got a rose quartz Mary on my altar in part to honor him, you know.
Mm.
Plus Mary is all the things. But it's like it was hard. So if you feel like you've had to hide your magic, I totally understand. I'm with you. So many of us have. And what I'll say is there comes a point where it's like you just have to be who you are. You just have to be who you
Yeah.
are. And when I was just getting into our world, the coaching world, I remember, and this was before I was officially out to my family because this was no, it was after actually. Yeah, it was after. I came out to them when we got married, which was in 2004, and this was later on. But I remember just thinking to myself, my first name for my business was Marketing Goddess, and I was just like, you know what? Like we're done. Like I'm not gonna make a big deal of it. I'm not gonna be like, I'm a magic witch magician, but I'm not gonna hide it either. And I'm gonna just
Yeah.
interweave. So I used to sign my emails like bright blessings and massive success, love and magic, like, and it just people saw right away, and then it was just very natural.
Mm. So it was easier to come out to strangers.
100% easier to come out to strangers.
Yeah.
100%. I'm like, yeah, I'm a witch. Practice
It's
magic.
such a, we were hanging out on retreat. Like it's such a good reason to go retreat or go take
Yeah.
yourself in a community of people who get it where you can practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really do think there's something to be said. This is just me. This is my opinion. It's like, so, and the magic that has appealed to me always, the magic that I engage in is personal development and transformation. And also when I came into this world, when I quit my job and I really dug into the personal development world, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the same stuff I've been studying for years and
Yeah.
years. But I really feel like it's okay. Not everyone has to feel the same way about it that I do.
Mhm.
And I don't need to make people feel comfortable, but at the same time, I don't need to stir the pot if it's not necessary, right? So I have a lot of respect for people who are not into magic and have problems with magic and have all their ways of being. Like maybe respect is the wrong word, but I'm just like, okay, I honor that, and I'm not gonna like be all up in your face just because I
Yeah.
can or need to express myself. But I also, if I know it, if I have if there's something if there's a way that I want to connect with you and that's going to be a distraction or send you down a rabbit hole, then I'm not going to, you know,
Yeah. It makes me think of
not going to
like
nudge. Yeah.
being a new coach and you have this awareness and you want everyone to know it. And,
Right.
no matter who you're talking, no matter who I was talking to when I was new in this world, it was like, all I could think of was, okay, how can we shift this? How can you get what you want? Like, and,
Right.
not everybody wants that. Like, just let it go.
Yeah, just like meet people where they're at. But I will say that I I also really love the contrast, right? I love the contrast between what people think magic is and magic is about, and what people think, modern day witchcraft, which Wicca is, right, is
Mm.
about, and me, because I don't fit their paradigm or their mold.
Right.
And I also, I mean, I have got a master's in computer science. I worked in corporate. I worked in, startups and stuff in New York City. Like I'm very well educated, type A, da 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 da. A lot of women see themselves in me. And I'm not gonna front like when people see that contrast and they're like it, kind of blows their minds. I
Mhm.
still enjoy it. And that's part of my, like I want to model for people that that transformational work and magic is a part of that is awesome and an amazing toolkit and skill set and normal,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have that in common, the left brain, right
Yeah.
brain aspect. And it's funny because when I left engineering, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm a
Yeah,
coach now. And then, I find when people know I have that background, it does change how they relate to me,
it does.
grounding it.
It
Yeah.
really does. I remember when I used to work for Viacom, and this is a little bit of an interesting or jump of an analogy, but like, all the engineers were like, you don't need that advanced degree. You don't need it. But you want to know what? It changed how people saw me. It absolutely changed. In Viacom, I was systems administrator and I was putting networks together. And, my boss was real happy that I had that master's in computer science, for better or worse,
Yeah.
you know? And it's the same thing. It's like I've got a real groundedness about me that people don't expect. And then they find out the background. And then they're able, for me too, part of what I think is important about it is it allows them to open their worldview a little bit more, which is what I want, which is the whole thing. I just I want magic to be my mission in the world, the mission that the goddess gave me was to, or is to be part of the movement to bring magic to the mainstream,
Mm.
which means be part of the
Yes.
movement to have the work that we do, whether it's NLP or hypnosis or somatics or other nervous system work or Western esotericism or whatever, be really out there and accepted and part of um, the fabric in the light, right? Because it's already out there, but it's all,
Yes.
underground. And I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but I get so excited. Like, there's honestly nothing that makes me happier than to have watched like magic and the like really come online in the past 15 years because
Yes.
it's not like it was when in 2004 when I was coming out to my parents. It's not like that anymore. It is way more part of the mainstream and way more accepted and way more seen for the powerhouse,
I was definitely unaware in 2004.
yeah,
And I'm on the same mission, Elizabeth, as like normalizing transformation.
right. That's a beautiful way to say it.
Space.
Normalizing transformation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I well, I have a random question. When you were growing up in Maine and you had the books in your closet,
Yeah.
where did you get them? Because there was no Amazon. Did your library carry them? How did this
Are
happen?
you ready for this? Okay, a couple things. I love this question. So, and it just goes to show how dorky I am.
Mhm,
So first of all, I used to love to go to the bookstore and I would just buy stuff at the bookstore. So
mhm.
I would save my pennies and I would buy books on astrology. For some reason, so tarot was like my first magical tool, but for some reason, for a long time, I was like, that is too complicated. It is 78 cards. I'm never going to be able to memorize all that. Like, this is the narrative of a 10-year-old, right? I was fascinated by it for whatever reason. I'd made up my mind about that with tarot until later. But I used to love to like just go and look at the New Age section of the bookstore, and I would hide things in my bag after I paid for them and bring them home. And I definitely checked some books out of the library. There was a like Erica Jong has this beautiful, this is a little bit later, I think. I can't remember when this book was written. She has this beautiful book on witches. And I remember taking that out of the library. And it's a big book. It's like a coffee table book. And I'm like, how am I
You're
going to hide
hiding it.
this? Yeah, but then also, so little later on, right, 11, 12, whatever, Time Life started coming out with, it had this Enchanted World series, which was all about mythology, because mythology and like stories and fairy tales and stuff went hand in hand. And I never talk about this in the coaching world, but I was very, very ensconced in, mythology and folklore. And I was on the road to being an urban fantasy writer. So I
Mm,
used to, say again, save my pennies and order the Time Life books myself because my parents wouldn't get them for me. And there was
wow.
another series called Mysteries of the Unknown, I think, and that was about ESP and telepathy and those
Yes.
things. That was where I really kind of cut my teeth, if you will, because I had the voice in my head and I wanted to move things with my mind. I couldn't do that, but like, I wanted to know about all these gifts. And so I used to order Time Life books in secret, and I would actually go up to and I think my mom knew, there's only so much, and she's not paying super close attention, to what I'm ordering in the mail, which is kind of funny. But again, 80s, it was in the 80s, a different time. But I used to save my pennies and I would go up to the post office. I'd walk up to the post office and buy a money order, and I would buy things that way. I didn't have a checkbook. So I would buy money orders and I would order the magic books by mail.
I
Yeah.
love this so much. Oh my
I've
gosh.
never
I was
shared this
so
in my
not in that
on.
world. I
Yeah.
was like just watching, the nightly Who's the Boss or whatever the nightly show was with my siblings. I was not
Yeah.
doing that.
It's just, it's totally different. But at the same time, like, I want to acknowledge this because I knew it was bad and I knew it was wrong.
Mm,
Like this, it was
yeah.
coded. And honestly, if I'd had an open conversation with my mom about it, I'm sure we would have gotten to some kind of place other than where we got. Yeah, I didn't feel safe to do that. But it's like, so a lot of it was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You know what I mean? I wasn't hiding like big rituals in my room or anything because I'm like, I'm not supposed to be doing this,
Yeah.
but I'm doing it anyway because it's who I am. Scribble, scribble, scribble in the
Mm,
journal, you know? It was like that.
amazing.
And let me practice my psychic gifts like while at the skating rink,
Brilliant.
that kind
I
of
love
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we
No one has
got
ever asked me that, so it's like, wow.
I, that's amazing. And I just really want to know if you're listening and you also did this, I want to know. I want to know if this is
Me
a
too.
thing that other kids were doing around the globe. That's so great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know you were living in New York, corporate job. You talked about writing. I know that you met your husband through that path.
I did. He was a comics artist, and I used to date. I also before Leland, I dated a guy who was a really really big writer in the comics industry, still is. So I was on that road, and had crushes on seven others of them. Yeah,
So talk about, take yourself back there. And so since you're getting this guidance regularly,
yeah.
like, is there a time where your knowing guided you in a direction that seemed crazy, but you did it and it worked out better than you could have imagined?
That's a really great question. Yeah, there was definitely. I can tell you one incident, and I like with career stuff, it was harder because again, I had all this coding and all this patterning that I was going to be an engineer, and then I had to be a scientist or a doctor basically. But with my husband, there was a real change your life turning point that was kind of crazy. And it had to do with, you know, breaking up with the comic book rock star, as I will call him. And again, amazing human. I still just love the schniz out of him, even though it's been so long, right? But he wasn't the
Mhm.
right guy. And we were together for 2.5 years or something like that. And we were on the path of getting married. And he lived in Los Angeles, and Leland lived in Portland. So he and I, the comic book rock star and I, did the long distance relationship thing for all that time. And then Leland came on the scene, and Leland came on the scene because I was looking for an artist, right? I wanted someone to draw for me. and illustrate one of my stories. And then we're talking 10 times a day. And then it was like an oh no moment, right?
Mm.
And it was very hard because, the comic book rock star represented kind of a safer, secure path. Like he was a comic book rock star. Like he had already written 1,000 comics
Is
at that
making
time,
money.
making insane amounts of money, and, you know, was famous and still is, you know, in his world.
Mhm.
And then here comes Leland. And I loved him too. Like, let's be clear. Like he was very, very dear to me, you know? And he had what I wanted, right?
Mhm.
Because I wanted all of that.
Yeah.
And here comes Leland. And and I honestly I really didn't know what to do. And my guidance was like, go talk to Walden Ruthan. And Walden Ruthan are my tarot teachers from way back. And by that time, I was doing all I could read for myself. I was constantly talking to the guidance, da, da, da. But this one was so big until the moment I'm going to tell you about. But this one was so big that like I'm like, I need to have someone else facilitate this so that my my
Yeah.
ego does not get in the way. And so I went to Walden Ruthan and Wald laid out the cards and he just said, look, if you stay with him, you'll always be in his shadow. And I was like, okay, I don't want to hear that. Right. But then a couple of months later, I was in Barcelona, Spain with him for a comic book conference. And Leland's calling me and all of this. And it was like I was in the airport and the whole time, my record keepers and guides are like, rah, 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 And I finally,
Wait, what was the ruh, ruh?
they were just like, we're supporting you. We're supporting you. Like, you got to like make this move. You got to make this move. And I'm like, you know, because it was big and scary and I cared about this person and I cared about this other person, but they're both on the West Coast. Like it's literally not happening. You got to pick one of them. And so finally I just got quiet in the airport. And again, very similar to Wald, the record keepers were like, I didn't know who that was at the time, but because I wasn't reading the records at the time, the Akashic records. They were like, look, you know the deal here. Like you're not meant to be with this person. You're meant to be with this other person. And you got to say goodbye. And I did. And I said goodbye in the airport. And it was like instant shifting of timelines, instant shifting of timelines, you know?
Mm.
And I just
Say
know.
more
I
about
mean,
that.
yeah, well, I was on one path, right? And this is the way guidance works. I know you know this, right? This is the way guidance works. It's like you're on a particular path and your guidance, which is you and or whoever else you're talking to, combo platter, right? Knows.
Yeah.
And when you follow the guidance, you are going from point A, it's like the sliding doors movie
Yes.
over here. So
Did
one
you
minute
feel it in your body?
you feel it in your body. And I knew, and I was like, guys, I get it, but this is just so hard,
Yeah.
you know? I knew the minute that Wald reflected it back to me because because the tarot just tells you, you know? And but it really was like one minute I'm in Barcelona with the comic book rock star on this path of being his girlfriend and then wife, and then maybe because I wasn't someone else would I had a lot of work to do on myself to be able to stand on my own 2 feet creatively.
Mm.
I know that I would have done exactly what Wald articulated clearly that I already knew, which is
Yeah.
be in his shadow. That was timeline A. And
Yeah.
then Leland's
And
Leland's
do I
timeline B.
remember you were engaged?
We were very close. Like we talked about it. We hadn't officially said it because we were both, but it clearly, I mean, it was like either we're staying together and getting engaged or we're not. It was
Yeah.
it was that. And Leland was engaged actually. He actually had a ring on someone else's finger, which is a whole other story and hard. And she called me and
Oh,
it was bad, but it was like, no, this is the timeline. This is the
and
timeline.
it's been how many years and you're still together and heading out to a
21,
beach day?
21 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, 21 years. That was in 2004. Yeah.
Okay, you gave me some good questions here. So this is so big. I wanted to get outside support so my ego doesn't get in the way. And I
Yeah.
just think we should expand on that a little bit because it's so
Yes.
brilliant, right? It's like we have access to our own guidance at all times, but when something is bumping up against our identity, we can't hear it. And talk
Yeah.
more about that.
Yeah, it's the same reason we hire coaches. It's the same reason we get the guidance that we get in the transformation space because, our programming and patterning wants to keep us in the same place and will create blind spots. And indeed, with scaling or growing your business, like actually scaling and growing your business is about getting out of blind spots. That's a whole other convo, but it's the same concept. So I'm like, I need someone to hold the space and to do some of the lifting because all my energy is like caught up in whatever the hell this is, you know? So I was like, I gotta get someone to help me and basically facilitate the consulting of my own guidance. And of
Yeah.
course it's his too, because he's doing the reading and everything. And he's someone I, trust and love and care about very, very much. But it's he and Walt and Ruth Ann, because they're together, they're a unit, we're holding the space
Mhm.
for this really momentous piece of information to break through the fog,
Yes.
right? Because our brains create fog and confusion. So part of his role was to break through all of that to make sure that the real me heard it, you know?
Yes.
And you go, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah, does that make sense? Trying to
Yeah, when a
break this
truth
down.
just hits you,
Yeah.
you
But it's
just
like
know.
our brain is going to try to create confusion and try to keep us obfuscate. I mean, because saying yes to Leland meant saying yes to a lot of scary things.
Yeah.
It meant saying yes to a lot of scary things. Goddess bless the comic book rock star, but he wouldn't have challenged me. He wouldn't have challenged me. And he wouldn't have, when I was having a breakdown or whatever, he wouldn't have been able to say like, this isn't who you are,
Yeah.
and
Got this.
yeah, that was scary. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So when did you pivot and move into the transformation space? And like talk a little bit about that journey. And was there a moment where you went, oh, this is, this is not me, or tried to resist it?
Oh yeah, I went kicking and screaming. I
Yeah,
did because
get that.
at this time I had invested 5 and 6 years into being a writer. Like
Mm,
I understand the identity pieces so much more now, but at the time I didn't. But my identity was I am going to be a writer. I'm going to be a young adult fiction writer and or a comics writer.
mhm,
And then I saw The Secret and was like, oh my
mm.
God, this is my world here out in front of me. At that time, I hadn't had any exposure to New Thought. Interestingly, I didn't know about that. But I was like, this is Magic 101, basically. Holy crap. So I'm coming over here into the personal development world. But also, the other like major wrinkle was that to quit my job, I was like, well, I want to quit my job to be a writer. And someone was like, you know what? You should write these sales letters through the mail. There's a guy who sells metaphysical products through the mail, and he needs sales letters written. I'm like the mail that you get in the mail, like the sales letter in the mail. He's like, yeah, you can write those. And I was like, yeah, okay, okay, But that took me into the world of direct response copy and direct response marketing. And that's when the real cognitive dissonance exploded. Because I was like, first of all, I loved it. I was like, holy crap. Again, this is magic right here. This is all perception and shifting reality right here in the form of these sales letters that you get for whatever in the mail from Time Life or whatever.
Oh,
And I was like, what do I do about this? Because this is completely weird and everyone is going to think I've gone off the frigging deep end. This was the narrative, right? Because I'd made all these
yeah.
friends with all of these like my childhood heroes, like people whose books were on my shelves. And of course they loved me. They didn't care, but I was like, I'm going to be a I'm going to be a marketer? Are you kidding me? While at the same time going, wait a minute, these guys are sending emails out and money comes back.
Yeah.
Where do I sign? And the whole
I
thing
just, I
was just
love
like, what
so
do I
much.
do with this? I don't even know. And it really sent me into major crisis until I found coaching and kind of found the bridge between the two. I was like, I'm not going to write sales letters for a living. Are you kidding me? That was
I
the
just
real like crap. Oh my God.
love it. I'm sure people listening can imagine their own moment. Mine was, you're a chemical engineer. You can't go be a life coach. That's crazy.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I
And I
was
love that you said, people just love you. They don't care what you're doing for a living, but it really seemed like people would care.
it very much seemed like Terry Windling would care. And
Yeah.
I was like, it very much seemed like Ellen Kushner would care. And of course they're like, this is awesome. Help us sell our stuff, you know?
So you're still really using this skill and known for this skill of
Yeah.
writing sales letters and writing copy. So talk a little bit about like moving in that direction. Did you ever have a general life coaching phase or were you always
Oh,
in?
yeah, no, definitely. So, yeah, because I also was like, again, it was like things had to come together, right? So I found marketing and I was like, this is a magical tool. That is what this is. These guys, John Carlton and Dan Kennedy, and like all these guys I'm following around, don't know that that's the case, but that's the case, So there was like, and then and also the other thing too about writing, I was like, I can't just sit in my room and write all day. Like that I figured out pretty quickly. I need something else. And then I'm trying to remember exactly how coaching got on my radar, but then coaching came on my radar. And also I was like, again, holy fudginators, this is magic. So this is like I'm having these conversations in 2007 with myself. This is 2007, 2008, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, these people have no idea what they're doing, what they're really playing with. My sort of arrogant,
Isn't that still true in a lot of ways though?
yeah. And I was just like, you guys. And that's when I was like, all right, now we're talking. And I actually the very first person to sell me a coaching program was Christian Michelson.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, and I just, yeah, exactly.
we
You
just
know,
saw. That's so
I
funny.
I bought his coaching course on how to coach. It was the very first thing, and then I found, my first mentor, Kendall Summerhawk, who was
Mm.
just a phenomenal coach. I haven't connected with Kendall in a very, very, very long time, but again, I told Leland, I was like, I got to get coach training, and I was on the road to, getting it from, oh, what is it? Coach. No, it's one of the big, big coach schools,
Okay.
one of the big, big, well-known ones.
Mhm.
And when Kendall's certification came out the first time, I got my money
Mm.
back, and I joined her thing, and I saw her coach from stage, and I was like, holy marshmallows. This is again magic. The space holding, the like shifting perception in an instant, the like a minute ago you're here and now you're here, you know,
Mhm.
and it all came together. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, this is the path, and I've just got to like
Yeah.
surrender to what this looks like. And then very shortly after that, that's when, the goddess came along, was like, listen, this is about magic for the mainstream for you and how it's going to work. Here's how it's going to work. And she's real clear. And I could have changed. You can always push back or change whatever, but I just had this resonance. She's like, you're going to learn the business stuff because magic has to have a channel to work through, right? Like we have to have an
Yeah.
application. And for you, this is the business piece. And then you're also going to teach the magic. And those two things are going to connect. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. And that was that. That's the path I've been on ever since.
Oh my gosh. So magic has to have a channel to flow through. I love the way you phrased that. I
Yeah.
talk a lot in my work about structure and flow and
Yeah.
how like the structure supports the magic. And I'm sure you see this so often where people want to talk about the magic, but they don't have a structure for their client to put it into, like a
Right.
context, right?
Totally. And so for me, it's always been about context. It's always been about what are we applying this to make our lives better?
Yes.
And then when I was in my early 20s, the wee witchlet running around enchantments in New York City, one of the oldest magic shops, I remember standing in that shop, and I love that shop, so no shade, and forgive me for being my arrogant self. But I was just like, are y'all using this to make your lives better? Because you
Yeah.
all ought to be millionaires, and you're
Mhm.
not. And that actually was also, and of course, not everyone feels that way. Not everyone has to, that's not everyone's frame of magic. Magic can be personal growth and nothing else. And one of my later teachers, Donna Michael Craig, was like, yeah, magicians aren't rich because they're too busy doing magic and like being magic. And I'm like, I get that too, you know? But for me, it was very much like, they're in ritual all day and they're doing ritual and like
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just like, I want to apply this to create
Yes.
outcomes, real
Mhm.
outcomes, like big ones that matter. And that's kind of where like the business coaching
Yes.
comes from. It's like I can't just teach magic without an application of it. And that some of
Okay.
that is just that is a personal thing. I want to really acknowledge that because not everyone feels that way, but I definitely do, you know?
I love it. Well, one, I focus on retreats because it brings structure, right? It's
Right.
like a thing. It's like a
Yeah, it's a
tangible
thing and
thing.
it's
Like
a
we're all
container.
showing up here
Right.
on a
It's a
certain
magic
day.
circle.
Exactly. And then,
Yeah.
oh, what else was I going to say about that? Oh, it makes me think of my time. I did a lot of time at Landmark Education
Oh,
and
yes,
went through a
absolutely.
lot of that. And I would volunteer at the center and make phone calls and check in on people. And eventually I started to think like, are people's lives getting better who are volunteering here? Like it started to feel like, oh, this is actually the same thing over and over. And people are coming to volunteer as like a crutch
Yeah.
rather than like actually talking to people in their own lives or like changing their own lives. So kind of a
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, it's very much it's part of the illusion and allure of magic, and it's part of the magician to know where that is for them because people get to be a choice. People get to decide like what amazing life looks like, and what I think is massive success is very different from somebody else. But that's also different than not being real willing to really use the toolkit to face what you need to face,
Yes.
you know?
Okay,
Yeah.
one more question. When did Akashic Records come in, and how do you use that when you're helping clients develop their offer?
Oh, that's awesome question. Thank you. So it came online when I had a crisis in my marriage,
Mm.
which is a story for another day. And we got through it. Like, spoiler alert, it all worked out. But yeah, Leland and I were going through a really rough time. And I'd always been attracted to the Akashic Records. And my teacher, the person who taught me the Akashic Records, I was already doing readings and stuff with her. And I just decided, now's so before it was just like, oh, here's this modality and I'm going and I'm sitting with someone who's reading my records and this is cool and it was really amazing like the work that we did. But it wasn't something I was considering for myself. But then when I hit this crisis point, somehow it got harder to use my normal tools. Somehow it got harder to use my Oracle decks or my tarot. It was, I'm just kind of like, and the record keepers were there and they were kind of like, all right, it's time to take this to 11, basically.
Mhm.
And so I did the Akashic level 1 and was just like so many because people find the Akashic records, they're called back to the records.
Mm.
And it was just like again, a holy crap. Like, oh my goodness. I remember the first time I opened the records and I felt the energetic shift. There's a little energetic shift that happens. And I remember thinking to myself, they're really up there. I can feel them up there. I can feel them.
Mm.
And I also know that they've been here this whole time, but I experience them differently now because I'm at choice in choosing to engage with them as the record keepers rather than just as the voice in my head. And
Mm.
it was just kind of like going direct, I guess you could say. And it was also like was almost like they were like, now we really get to play. You and I have been on this, we've all been, or we and you have all been on this journey for a long time, but you weren't aware of exactly who we are and what we're up to. And now you do. Huzzah,
Mm.
you know? And we
Is
have
there
to
a
make that
little
choice. You know what I mean? Oh, go ahead.
is there a little snippet of what you learned that recontextualized whatever was going on in your marriage?
It was so long ago, but I think, well, no, at the time, what really helped at the time, that was when I really started to have the awareness come online that we are really truly, and this is something like from practicing magic, but like now I get it, it was like, no, you really are a divine being in a human body. And you
Mm.
and Leland have history and you have patterns that you're playing out and you have things that are happening.
Mm.
And they were like, what we're going to invite you to do is do your best to see the bigger context and see this person as the divine being in a human body, having a human experience, one of many. He's cute. He's just like, I'm a new soul. I haven't been here before, but I'm like, that's not true. You know? So that really, really helped. And plus, with the record keepers, it's like they are love and truth. That is what they are. And you go and connect with record keepers, and you're just basically sitting there with a group of beings of the highest and purest light who just want the best for you and care about you and love you. And
Mm.
when you're in the records, you're in that energy. And of course, they're going to call you higher and kick your butt and all of those things. But they are their truth and love. And so you're in that space. And that was really what I needed at the time. It was like, I just need to be sitting here with you guys for like 15 minutes a day, which is one of the practices that we teach, right? Just like being
Mm.
here in your
Yeah.
energy, consciously, fully online, not you waiting for me to wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your book.
Sure.
And, um, I'm sure people are connecting with your story and the depth of magic that you bring and how you take the magic and make it really practical. So, people who are listening who are business owners, what would you want to say if you had like a soapbox to preach on about why get your offer correct and how just anything about making that leap from 6 to 7 figures?
Sure. Gosh. Well, if I had any one thing to share, kind of like my big message for the world, and this will be my bigger message for the world, when I kind of like, continue to branch out from what I'm doing now, is that everything you want is already here. Like that really is. I don't feel like people really get that. Everything you want is already here,
Mm.
and you can have it when you be the one who.
Mm.
You can have it when you be the one who has already done it, basically. And so, in terms of offers, a lot of times for people, what that means is that that offer is the again that channel or that catalyst for the magic to work through. And what's hard sometimes for peeps is that they have their preconceived ideas. They're like, this is what I want to offer, this is what I want to do. And I always say, you always get to do exactly what you want to do. But we have to make that connection between your offer and the person on the other end. We have to make that connection between, you know, how you say it and how you perceive it and what you know is true and where your client is. And this is from my mentor Travis, and I didn't get it the first time he told me this, but I get it now. He's like, Offers are just matchmatking. They're just
Mm.
matchmaking.
Ooh,
And I'm just like,
love that.
whoa, okay, that's blowing my mind. He's like, it's true because you
Yes.
got what you got your thing and what you want, but you have to, and this is a have to. I know this audience and my audience don't like have tos. You don't like musts. You don't want to be told what to do. Believe me, I got that oppositional disorder or whatever the hell's going on. I don't like to be told what to do either. But the more that we surrender to what is, and what is that you have to put your offer in a way that people can get it and want it, even if you're selling with energy. This is another thing, right? Energetics on the selling side, bibis, will only take you so far. It will
Mhm.
only take you so far, or you're going to be hitting your head up against the
Yeah.
ceiling. You know, you've got to be able to communicate and have that channel. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be perfect, but we've got to like be able to make that match. And so that's part of the being the one who, in my view, it's
So
like,
good.
yeah,
Like earlier, you said your magic needs a channel to flow through, and you just tied it to the offer is the channel for the magic to flow through. Like
it really
that's
is.
so going to be mind blowing for if you really take that in, it can totally change how you relate to your work.
Yeah. And I know it's hard. Believe me, I thought I was going to be, when she said magic to the mainstream, I was like, I'm going to be Gabby Bernstein, and like, I want to be famous and I want to be speaking. And I do, I want those things. I'm not going to front. But at the same time, this was another like humble kick in the buns, around the same time I started learning the records. They were like, no, you've got to teach the leaders. You got to teach the leaders how to do this
Yeah.
channel offer
Yes.
thing, you know? And I'm
So
like,
good.
no, I don't want to do it.
I love it so much. This is so good.
But then I
Okay.
love it too. It's like the things we often say, I don't want to do, turn into the things that like actually it never gets old. I love so much when people's offers start taking off and their message starts taking off. Even if it's just one little thing, it starts with like one person, one sale, right? Or even
Yes.
one presentation of a sale. Like someone liked your message and you look at their page and they're an ideal client where last week you had nothing but tire kickers or whatever, right? Never gets old. It's just so, so much fun where people are like, "Oh, I get it." I tweak the words and then I add my energy and I add all my stuff and my like the energetics, right? Because that's crucial. And all of that gets amplified, right?
So good.
Never gets old.
All right. So you're giving people your book. And
Yes.
when you launched this, I downloaded it. I had it on my iPad. I was taking a trip. I devoured it on the
Oh, I'm
plane
so
rides.
thank
It's
you.
so good. It really walks through this being the one who and just like masterful weaving of mindset and energy lessons. And you're giving it to people.
Yes. Yes, it is free. It is a gift from me to you. It is our system of energetics called the standards. And it's a real practical way. So from because I have to do all the work myself on my own stuff, right? And this body of work was the hardest thing to figure out what really it was about and what the positioning was. When I first came up with it, it was about helping people charge more. And I know you can relate to this. It was
Yeah.
like, how do you charge 50K fees and get it?
Yeah.
That's what it'll show you how to do, but it really shows you how to get out of the wobble very, very quickly so you can take action on your day to day, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Everybody should go get this. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, anything you want to leave people with?
I feel just like I'll just tell you everything you want is already here. That really is my message to the universe, to the world. Universe already knows that message. But yeah, that's what I'll say. And just also just my gratitude for receiving and listening and being here. I know even on a podcast, it's something to show up for yourself on a podcast like this, because this is a podcast where you're showing up for yourself. So I'll just really acknowledge everyone listening too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for who you are in the world.
Thank you so
We
much for
got
the
this
opportunity.
and have fun at the beach.
Bright blessings. Bye.
Bye.